So today we'll be talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted our environment. Our main claim is that widespread diseases, specifically COVID-19, have been detrimental to our physical environment, which in turn has affected multiple aspects of our lives, including education, construction, and animal care.
My name is Connor Purley, and I'm a building and construction technology major. Through my findings, I was able to identify the negative effects COVID had on the construction industry, with initial hardships being inability to secure materials on time, reduction in productivity rates, and material price escalations and inflation. All these contributed to major delays in the industry. Their initial responses included staggering of construction practices, offering COVID-19 related training, and administering temperature checks prior to entry to workplaces, along with the masking and social distancing requirements. This also gave us opportunities to seek better prevention methods for the future, such as new ventilation codes that came into effect in 2013 and have improved since to increase ventilation to reduce sickness. Designation of essential construction categories such as medical and transportation work that was able to be fast tracked during the pandemic. And along with all of this, creating pandemic response systems that can be put in place during times of hazards and such that can increase the time that we get to respond to these and reduce delays.
All right, my name is Tomas Ehlert. I'm a geology major, and I will be covering how the COVID-19 impacted the physical environment. So the first graph I have here is showing the greenhouse gas emissions. And we can see that in 2020, we have a big spike down, which we have not seen in any other time throughout since we've been tracking the greenhouse gas emissions. And on the next slide, I have a couple of positive and negative impacts. So some of the short-term impacts would be reduced economic activity and lockdowns, which led to a decrease in air pollution. There was also fewer people traveling, which led to decrease in waste generated from transportation-related activities. And there was also increased awareness of the impact of human activities on the environment. Some of the negative short terms would be increase in single-use plastic waste, increase in packaging waste, increase in medical waste, and reduction of sustainability programs. And then for the long term, some positive would be the increased adoption of remote work and virtual meetings, which reduce commuting and greenhouse gas emissions. There was also a shift towards sustainable practices and technologies, such as renewable energy and electric vehicles. And there was also more preparedness for and resilience for future pandemics and climate change. And some of the negative impacts for the long term would be the increase in plastic waste in the oceans. And I think the main takeaway would be that for the short term, the increased awareness, that just goes to show how in the graph we can see that how COVID-19 had such a big impact, and how I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind. And then the preparedness and resilience for the future pandemics is that we just need to use COVID-19 as more of a learning experience rather than seeing the negatives.
So my name is Samantha Pang, and I'm a biology major, and I talked about how COVID is related to its effects on education. And I tied it into biology by talking about deforestation and habitat loss, which increases the rate of zoonotic disease transmission. And zoonotic disease is basically a disease that transfers from animals to humans. And we saw, during COVID-19 how pandemics kind of occur from this. Because workers in the field are constantly being surrounded by wildlife, and they're more susceptible to these diseases. And it caused major disruptions in life, especially education. And we saw during the pandemic how these school closings and being limited to technology and social interactions, as well as people who have learning disabilities, majorly impacted how we got our education. And the solution that I talked about and how we can prevent it for the future is just encouraging sustainable land practices and safeguarding natural areas, as well as providing sustainable natural resource education for those, so that we can learn more about how to protect our forests.
My name is Adrienne. I'm a pre-vet science major, and I'm going to talk about COVID's effect on domestic animals, specifically dogs. The pandemic had negative effects on mental health, which we're all aware of, but this caused a lot of people to grasp for short-term solutions to their mental health issues. And a lot of people ended up purchasing puppies that they weren't prepared for. And then in the aftermath of COVID, so the past year and a half, many of these dogs were surrendered to shelters, leading to overpopulation and high rates of euthanasia, which is still going on today. In the future, if you want to get a puppy, or if you're experiencing a mental health crisis and feel the need to have a short-term solution for that problem, take time to plan and prepare before impulse buying a puppy. Make sure you're prepared in terms of training, money, and having a future for that puppy. If you decide to purchase a dog from a breeder, ensure they're an ethical breeder. For example, during COVID, there was a really high spike in designer dog breeders, which led to a lot of non-designer dogs being stuck in shelters because people were spending a lot of money on these fancy dogs. And then take time to train and socialize your puppy to avoid behavioral issues as they grow, because during the pandemic, it was hard for dogs to see other dogs or other people, which led to them becoming adult dogs with a lot of behavioral issues and also leading them to be dumped in shelters.